For over a century, the Panama Canal has been a cornerstone of global trade, serving as a vital link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. By drastically reducing the time and cost of transporting goods across the globe, the canal reshaped the global economy and established itself as one of the most strategically important waterways in the world. Ships no longer had to navigate the perilous route around Cape Horn at the southern tip of South America, a shortcut that saved weeks of travel time and transformed shipping routes forever. Today, however, the Panama Canal faces challenges that could threaten its dominance in global trade. New technological advancements, environmental concerns, and, most importantly, rising competition from emerging trade routes are putting pressure on the canal like never before. The most formidable threat comes in the form of the Nicaragua Canal, a proposed waterway that promises to rival, and potentially surpass, the Panama Canal in terms of capacity and efficiency. The Nicaragua Canal, backed by Chinese investment, seeks to become a faster, deeper, and wider alternative to the Panama Canal. With the ability to accommodate much larger vessels, the Nicaragua Canal could fundamentally alter global shipping patterns. And it's not the only potential competitor. The Northern Sea Route in the Arctic, as well as the recently expanded Suez Canal, are also vying for a piece of the global trade pie. Together, these competitors pose a real and present danger to the Panama Canal's status as the world's most important trade route. The question we must now ask is, can the Panama Canal withstand this growing competition? To answer that, we need to explore not just the Panama Canal's past and present significance, but also the challenges it faces and how these new trade routes are set to disrupt the shipping industry. Let's start by diving deeper into the Panama Canal's current role in global trade and examining why it has remained so critical for so long. The Panama Canal's current role in global trade. The Panama Canal, completed in 1914, has long been heralded as one of the greatest feats of modern engineering. It cut the journey from New York to San Francisco by more than 8,000 miles, making it a vital artery for international trade. But the canal is more than just a marvel of construction. Its true power lies in its economic impact, both globally and locally. Key statistics and the canal's role in global trade. Every year, more than 14,000 vessels pass through the Panama Canal, representing about 6% of global maritime trade. The cargo that moves through the canal is valued at roughly $270 billion annually, and it touches every corner of the globe. From oil and gas to manufactured goods and agricultural products, the canal is a lifeline for many industries. The largest users of the Panama Canal are the United States, China, Japan, Chile, and South Korea, which reflects the canal's central role in linking key global markets. Approximately 60% of the goods that pass through the canal are destined for or originate from the US, making the canal a critical asset for the American economy. The canal also plays a vital role in the transportation of key commodities such as crude oil, liquefied natural gas, LNG, grains, and consumer goods. The Panama Canal's significance has only grown since the opening of the Panama Canal Expansion project in 2016. The expansion added a third set of locks, allowing the canal to accommodate Neo-Panamax ships, vessels that are considerably larger than those that could pass through the original locks. This expansion increased the canal's capacity by roughly 50%, making it possible to handle larger shipments and remain competitive in an era of massive cargo vessels. Economic benefits for Panama. The Panama Canal is not just an international trade route, it's also the economic backbone of Panama itself. The canal contributes around $3 billion annually to the country's economy, representing nearly 10% of Panama's GDP. The tolls paid by ships traversing the canal generate significant revenue, with some vessels paying over $1 million per transit, depending on their size and cargo. Beyond the direct financial impact, the canal supports tens of thousands of jobs. From engineers and maintenance workers who ensure the smooth operation of the locks, to logistics personnel, the canal has a ripple effect across various sectors of Panama's economy. In addition, the country benefits from the prestige and geopolitical influence that comes from controlling such a vital global asset. Major commodities transported through the canal. The Panama Canal serves as a crucial route for a wide variety of goods, but certain commodities dominate its traffic. Petroleum products are the largest category, with crude oil and LNG accounting for a significant portion of the cargo that passes through. The growth in the global LNG trade, in particular, has been a boon for the canal since the 2016 expansion, which allows much larger LNG carriers to navigate the waterway. In addition to energy products, the canal sees heavy traffic in containerized goods, including electronics, vehicles, and consumer products that flow between Asia and the Americas. Grains, especially from the US Midwest, are another key export that relies on the canal for access to markets in Asia. Agricultural products like soybeans, corn, and wheat are often shipped through the canal en route to growing economies in East Asia, where demand for food imports continues to rise. This diverse flow of goods highlights the canal's critical importance to industries around the world. Any disruption in its operations, whether due to climate impacts, economic downturns, or emerging competitors, would reverberate through global supply chains. Environmental and strategic challenges. While the Panama Canal has been a boon for global trade, it's also grappling with significant challenges, particularly related to environmental sustainability. One of the most pressing concerns is the canal's reliance on freshwater to operate its lock system. Each ship that passes through the canal requires around 50 million gallons of water to fill the locks. This water comes from nearby lakes, which are fed by rainfall, making the canal vulnerable to changes in weather patterns. In recent years, Panama has experienced more frequent and severe droughts, which have led to water shortages. In 2019, the Canal Authority was forced to impose draft restrictions on vessels, limiting the size and weight of ships that could transit the canal. These restrictions had a significant impact on global trade, highlighting the canal's vulnerability to climate change. At the same time, the growing size of modern cargo ships presents another challenge. While the 2016 expansion allowed the canal to handle larger vessels, the trend in the shipping industry is toward ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, which are too big to fit through even the expanded locks. These ships are increasingly being used on major trade routes, forcing them to bypass the Panama Canal and take longer, more expensive routes around South America or through the Suez Canal. Geopolitical importance. The Panama Canal is also a crucial asset in global geopolitics. Control of the canal was transferred from the US to Panama in 1999, but the canal remains a strategic interest for many nations, particularly the United States and China. The US relies heavily on the canal for the movement of military and commercial vessels, while China has made significant investments in Panama's economy, including in infrastructure projects tied to the canal. The strategic importance of the Panama Canal cannot be overstated. In times of global conflict or economic tension, control of this vital waterway could have far-reaching implications. The potential rise of new trade routes, particularly the Nicaragua Canal, could shift this delicate balance of power, raising the stakes even further. Challenges facing the Panama Canal today. While the Panama Canal remains a critical artery for global trade, it faces a growing set of challenges that threaten its long-term viability. From aging infrastructure to environmental pressures and increasing competition from emerging trade routes, the canal is under significant pressure to adapt, or risk becoming obsolete. Aging infrastructure and capacity limits. One of the most pressing challenges facing the Panama Canal is its aging infrastructure. The original canal, built over a century ago, was a monumental achievement at the time. However, as global shipping has evolved, the limitations of the canal's infrastructure have become increasingly apparent. The canal was expanded in 2016 with the opening of the Panama Canal Expansion project, which added a third set of locks capable of accommodating Neo-Panamax vessels, ships significantly larger than the Panamax vessels the original canal was designed to handle. While this expansion boosted the canal's capacity by roughly 50%, it still falls short of addressing the growing demands of global trade. The shipping industry has been trending toward larger vessels, particularly ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, which can carry upwards of 20,000 20-foot equivalent units, TEUs. These ships are too large even for the expanded locks, forcing them to bypass the Panama Canal altogether. As the global fleet of ULCVs continues to grow, the canal risks losing a substantial portion of its potential traffic to other routes capable of handling these massive ships. Environmental challenges, water shortages and climate change. The Panama Canal is also grappling with serious environmental challenges, particularly related to its water usage. The canal's lock system relies heavily on freshwater from nearby lakes, specifically Lake Gatun and Lake Alajuela. Each transit of a vessel through the locks requires about 50 million gallons of freshwater, which is drained into the oceans once the ship passes through. In recent years, Panama has experienced more frequent and severe droughts, largely due to climate change. These droughts have led to critically low water levels in the lakes that supply the canal, forcing the Panama Canal Authority to impose draft restrictions on ships during the dry season. In some cases, the size and weight of vessels that could pass through the canal were significantly reduced, causing delays and increasing shipping costs. In 2019, for example, severe drought conditions forced the Canal Authority to introduce a freshwater surcharge on ships to compensate for the added strain on water resources. This surcharge, while necessary for managing water levels, adds another cost burden to shipping companies using the canal. The future looks increasingly uncertain as climate change continues to affect rainfall patterns in Panama. If freshwater shortages become more frequent or severe, the canal's ability to function at full capacity could be in jeopardy. This vulnerability to environmental changes is one of the most significant threats to the canal's long-term sustainability. Geopolitical risks and changing trade patterns. The Panama Canal is not just a commercial asset, it's also a strategic geopolitical tool. For much of its history, the canal was controlled by the United States, which maintained a strong presence in Panama to ensure the security and stability of this vital waterway. Control of the canal was handed over to Panama in 1999 under the Torrijos-Carter treaties, but the US still maintains a vested interest in the canal's operations. In recent years, China has emerged as a key player in Panama's economy, investing heavily in infrastructure projects, including those related to the canal. China is now one of the top users of the Panama Canal, and its influence in the region has raised concerns in the United States about the long-term geopolitical implications. As global trade patterns shift, the Panama Canal could find itself caught in the middle of growing tensions between the US and China. Both countries have a strong interest in maintaining access to the canal, and any disruption in its operations, whether due to environmental issues, infrastructure limitations, or geopolitical tensions, could have far-reaching consequences for global trade. Financial pressures and maintenance costs. Running the Panama Canal is an expensive operation. The tolls collected from ships passing through are the canal's primary source of revenue, but the cost of maintaining and upgrading the infrastructure is significant. The Panama Canal Expansion project cost around $5.25 billion, and ongoing maintenance of the locks, dams, and other critical components requires continuous investment. As shipping companies look for cheaper and faster alternatives, the Panama Canal faces increasing financial pressures. If the canal cannot remain competitive with other emerging routes, such as the Nicaragua Canal or the Northern Sea Route, it could see a decline in traffic, which would lead to reduced revenues. This, in turn, could make it more difficult for Panama to invest in necessary upgrades to keep the canal functioning efficiently. Introducing the new rival, the Nicaragua Canal and other competitors. The Panama Canal's dominance in global trade is no longer assured. Several new competitors have emerged, each with the potential to disrupt the established trade routes that have relied on the Panama Canal for decades. The most significant of these is the Nicaragua Canal, a proposed waterway that could rival the Panama Canal in terms of size, capacity, and strategic importance. The Nicaragua Canal, a new giant on the horizon. The Nicaragua Canal is an ambitious project that aims to create a new shipping route between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, similar to the Panama Canal. Backed by Chinese investment, the canal would be nearly 3 times the length of the Panama Canal, stretching approximately 170 miles across Nicaragua. It is designed to accommodate ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, which are too large to pass through the Panama Canal's locks, even after the 2016 expansion. One of the key advantages of the Nicaragua Canal is its depth. The planned canal would be significantly deeper than the Panama Canal, allowing it to handle not only the largest container ships but also supertankers that currently must take longer, more expensive routes around South America. This could make the Nicaragua Canal a more attractive option for shipping companies looking to reduce costs and transit times. However, the project has faced significant challenges. Environmental concerns, particularly related to the potential destruction of Lake Nicaragua, have delayed construction. Additionally, political instability in Nicaragua has raised questions about the feasibility of the project. While the Nicaragua Canal has the potential to transform global trade, its future remains uncertain. The Arctic route, a climate-driven competitor. Another emerging competitor to the Panama Canal is the Northern Sea Route, also known as the Arctic route. As climate change continues to melt the Arctic ice, this once impassable region is becoming a viable shipping route, particularly for trade between Europe and Asia. The Northern Sea route could reduce the journey between Europe and Asia by as much as 40%, saving shipping companies both time and fuel costs. The Arctic route offers significant advantages over the Panama Canal, particularly for ships that are too large to navigate the canal. However, the route is only accessible during certain times of the year, and the unpredictable weather in the Arctic presents a significant challenge. Despite these hurdles, several shipping companies have already begun to test the route, and it is expected to become more viable as ice continues to retreat. Suez Canal Expansion. A global competitor while geographically distant, the Suez Canal is another competitor that has recently expanded to accommodate larger vessels. The Suez Canal connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, offering a critical shortcut for trade between Europe and Asia. In 2015, the Suez Canal underwent a major expansion that doubled its capacity and allowed for the passage of larger ships. The Suez Canal's expansion has made it a more attractive option for shipping companies, particularly those looking to avoid the Panama Canal's size limitations. In recent years, the Suez Canal has seen a steady increase in traffic, and it now handles about 12% of global trade, compared to the Panama Canal's 6%. Other potential competitors. Land-based alternatives. In addition to new water-based competitors, there are also land-based alternatives that could challenge the Panama Canal's dominance. China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, for example, includes the construction of overland rail routes that connect Asia to Europe, offering an alternative to maritime shipping. While these rail routes cannot match the capacity of shipping lanes, they offer faster transit times for certain types of cargo, making them an attractive option for high-value goods. Similarly, several countries are exploring the possibility of building pipelines or overland transport routes to bypass the Panama Canal. These land-based alternatives, while still in their early stages, could present a long-term threat to the canal's position in global trade. Economic and geopolitical implications of a new trade route. The emergence of new trade routes, particularly the Nicaragua Canal and the Arctic route, could significantly reshape the global economy and geopolitical landscape. The Panama Canal has long been a cornerstone of international trade, but a shift to alternative routes would have profound economic consequences for Panama, the shipping industry, and the global power dynamics between key players like the United States and China. Economic impact. The ripple effect of shifting trade routes. At its core, global trade is driven by the pursuit of efficiency, finding the fastest, cheapest, and most reliable ways to move goods across the world. If new routes like the Nicaragua Canal or the Arctic route can offer these benefits, the economic impact could be enormous. For shipping companies, the most immediate benefit of these alternative routes would be cost savings. Larger vessels, such as ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, and supertankers, are currently too large to transit the Panama Canal. These ships are forced to take longer, more expensive routes around Cape Horn or through the Suez Canal. The Nicaragua Canal, with its greater depth and width, would allow these massive ships to take a direct route between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, saving time and money. Similarly, the Arctic route could cut shipping times between Europe and Asia by as much as 40% during the summer months, making it an attractive option for companies looking to optimize their supply chains. However, the economic impact goes far beyond the shipping industry. The countries that rely on the Panama Canal, particularly the United States, China, and Japan, could see their trade patterns disrupted. The US, for example, is the single largest user of the Panama Canal, accounting for over 60% of the cargo that passes through. If a significant portion of that traffic shifts to the Nicaragua Canal or the Arctic route, it could lead to changes in the cost of goods, supply chain logistics, and shipping patterns. For Panama, the potential economic impact is even more significant. The Panama Canal generates around $3 billion annually in revenue, representing nearly 10% of the country's GDP. Any decline in traffic due to competition from new trade routes could have a devastating effect on the Panamanian economy. Beyond the direct loss of revenue from tolls, a reduction in canal traffic could lead to job losses, reduced investment in infrastructure, and a slowdown in other industries that rely on the canal, such as tourism and logistics. Geopolitical tensions. A new battleground for global influence. The opening of new trade routes also has profound implications for global geopolitics. The Panama Canal has long been a strategic asset, particularly for the United States, which controlled the canal from its opening in 1914 until it was handed over to Panama in 1999. While the US no longer controls the canal, it remains a critical point of interest for American military and economic strategy. The rise of the Nicaragua Canal, backed by Chinese investment, introduces a new dynamic into this geopolitical equation. China has been steadily increasing its influence in Central and South America, investing in infrastructure projects, securing trade deals, and forging closer ties with countries in the region. The Nicaragua Canal represents the most visible example of China's growing presence in the Western Hemisphere, and it has raised concerns in Washington about the long-term strategic implications. For the United States, the prospect of a Chinese-backed canal in Nicaragua represents both an economic and a strategic challenge. Economically, a new canal could divert significant traffic away from the Panama Canal, reducing U.S. influence over global shipping routes. Strategically, the Nicaragua Canal could give China a foothold in the region, potentially allowing it to exert influence over critical infrastructure in a part of the world that has historically been within the U.S. sphere of influence. At the same time, the opening of the Arctic route could shift the balance of power in the Northern Hemisphere. Russia, which controls much of the Arctic coastline, has been investing heavily in icebreaker ships, port infrastructure, and military installations in the region. As the Arctic route becomes more viable, Russia could gain control over a significant portion of the global shipping lanes, increasing its leverage over countries that rely on the route for trade between Europe and Asia. Winners and losers in the global economy. As new trade routes emerge, there will inevitably be winners and losers in the global economy. Countries and industries that can take advantage of the cost savings and efficiencies offered by the Nicaragua Canal or the Arctic route stand to gain the most. Conversely, those that rely on the Panama Canal or other existing routes could see the competitive advantages erode. China is likely to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of a shift to new trade routes. China is already the world's largest exporter, and the ability to move goods more efficiently through the Nicaragua Canal or the Arctic route would further solidify its position as the dominant player in global trade. Additionally, China's investments in the Nicaragua Canal give it a strategic foothold in a key part of the world, allowing it to exert influence over shipping routes that have historically been controlled by the US and Europe. Panama, on the other hand, is at risk of being one of the biggest losers. The country's economy is deeply intertwined with the canal, and any significant reduction in traffic could have serious consequences for its economic stability. In addition to the direct loss of revenue from tolls, Panama could also see a decline in foreign investment, as companies that rely on the canal for their operations may shift their focus to new trade routes. Russia also stands to gain from the opening of the Arctic route. As one of the key players in the Arctic, Russia could benefit economically from increased traffic through the Northern Sea route, as well as from the geopolitical leverage it gains by controlling a significant portion of the route. European countries, particularly those in Northern Europe, could also benefit from the reduced shipping times between Europe and Asia. Conversely, the United States faces a more uncertain future. While the US remains a dominant player in global trade, the rise of new routes could reduce its influence over key shipping lanes. The potential loss of traffic through the Panama Canal would weaken US economic ties to Latin America, while the growing importance of the Arctic route could shift the geopolitical focus toward Russia and China. Case study: the impact of changing trade routes in history. History offers valuable lessons about how changes in trade routes can reshape global power structures. One of the most famous examples is the decline of the Silk Road and the rise of maritime trade routes during the Age of Exploration. For centuries, the Silk Road was the primary conduit for trade between Europe and Asia, but the development of sea routes around Africa and across the Indian Ocean eventually made the overland route obsolete. This shift in trade patterns had profound consequences for the empires and nations that relied on the Silk Road. China, once the dominant player in Eurasian trade, saw its influence wane as European powers like Portugal, Spain, and Britain gained control over the seas. The lesson here is that shifts in trade routes can have far-reaching consequences, not just for the countries directly involved, but for the entire global order. As we look to the future, the emergence of the Nicaragua Canal, the Arctic route, and other alternatives to the Panama Canal could similarly reshape the global economy and the balance of power between nations. The ability to adapt to these changes, whether through investment in new infrastructure, shifts in trade policy, or strategic alliances, will determine who rises and who falls in the next era of global trade. Technological advancements and innovations. The future of shipping. The shipping industry has always been driven by innovation, from the development of steamships to the rise of containerization. Today, a new wave of technological advancements is poised to reshape global trade once again. From autonomous ships to greener, more sustainable technologies, these innovations could fundamentally alter how goods move around the world, and in the process, they could either extend or shorten the lifespan of traditional trade routes like the Panama Canal. Advances in shipbuilding, ultra-large vessels and beyond. One of the most significant trends in the shipping industry is the move toward larger vessels. Over the past 2 decades, shipping companies have increasingly turned to ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, to maximize efficiency and reduce costs. These massive ships, capable of carrying more than 20,000 20-foot equivalent units, TEUs, offer significant economies of scale, allowing companies to transport more goods at a lower cost per unit. However, these ULCVs also present a challenge for existing infrastructure. The Panama Canal, even after its 2016 expansion, is too small to accommodate these behemoths. Instead, ULCVs are forced to take longer routes, such as around South America or through the Suez Canal. The rise of the Nicaragua Canal, which is designed to handle ULCVs, could accelerate the shift away from the Panama Canal, as shipping companies look for faster, more efficient routes. Looking ahead, shipbuilders are already exploring the next generation of vessels, which could be even larger and more efficient. Autonomous ships, for example, could reduce the need for crew members and increase safety by eliminating human error. These autonomous vessels, combined with advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning, could revolutionize how shipping companies optimize their routes, reduce fuel consumption, and manage their fleets. Sustainable shipping. The push for green technology. As global awareness of climate change grows, the shipping industry is under increasing pressure to reduce its environmental impact. Shipping is currently responsible for about 3% of global CO2 emissions, and there is a growing push for the industry to adopt greener technologies to reduce its carbon footprint. One of the most promising areas of innovation is in alternative fuels. Companies are experimenting with a range of low-carbon options, including liquefied natural gas, LNG, hydrogen, and ammonia. These fuels offer the potential to significantly reduce emissions compared to traditional heavy fuel oil, which is still widely used in the industry. In addition to alternative fuels, the industry is also exploring ways to improve fuel efficiency through the use of wind-assisted technologies like rotor sails and kites. These innovations, combined with advances in hull design and propulsion systems, could make shipping more sustainable and reduce the environmental impact of global trade. Autonomous shipping and digital innovation. The future of shipping is not just about bigger and greener vessels. It's also about smarter, more connected ships. The rise of autonomous shipping is one of the most exciting developments in the industry. Autonomous ships, guided by AI and advanced sensors, have the potential to navigate the world's oceans without the need for human crews. This would not only reduce labor costs but also minimize the risk of accidents caused by human error. Several companies are already testing autonomous vessels, with promising results. For example, Yara Birkeland, an autonomous, zero-emissions container ship, is set to become the world's first fully autonomous cargo vessel, revolutionizing the way short-sea shipping is conducted. This shift toward autonomy, combined with advances in big data and blockchain technology, could lead to more efficient shipping routes, improved supply chain transparency, and reduced costs. The digitization of global trade is another key trend that could disrupt traditional trade routes. Blockchain technology, in particular, has the potential to streamline shipping processes by creating a secure, decentralized ledger for tracking cargo and verifying transactions. This could reduce the time and cost associated with paperwork, customs clearance, and other logistical bottlenecks, making global trade more efficient. Will the Panama Canal stay relevant in the face of innovation? With so many technological advancements on the horizon, the big question is, can the Panama Canal stay relevant? The answer depends largely on whether the canal can keep pace with these innovations. While the 2016 expansion allowed the canal to accommodate larger ships, the industry is already moving toward vessels that are too large for even the expanded locks. One option for the Panama Canal is to invest in further expansion, possibly creating even larger locks to handle the next generation of mega ships. However, this would require significant investment, potentially tens of billions of dollars, and it's unclear whether Panama has the financial resources to undertake such a massive project. Another option is for the canal to focus on environmental sustainability, positioning itself as a green alternative to other trade routes. The Panama Canal Authority has already taken steps in this direction, introducing a carbon-neutral program that allows shipping companies to offset their emissions by contributing to reforestation projects in Panama. By embracing green technologies and sustainability, the canal could appeal to companies looking to reduce their environmental impact. Ultimately, the future of the Panama Canal will depend on its ability to adapt to the changing landscape of global trade. As new technologies emerge and alternative trade routes gain traction, the canal will need to innovate if it hopes to remain a key player in the world of shipping. The future of global trade, scenarios and predictions. The global trade landscape is shifting, and with new competitors like the Nicaragua Canal and the Arctic route on the horizon, the future of shipping is filled with uncertainty. In this section, we will explore several possible scenarios for the future of global trade and how they might impact the Panama Canal. Each scenario considers different factors such as technological advancements, geopolitical dynamics, and environmental challenges, offering a glimpse into how the next decades could unfold. Scenario 1. The Panama Canal modernizes and adapts. In this optimistic scenario, the Panama Canal recognizes the growing threat from competitors and takes aggressive steps to modernize and adapt to the evolving demands of global trade. This would likely involve a new phase of expansion, where the Canal Authority invests in larger locks and deeper channels to accommodate the ultra-large container vessels, ULCVs, that currently bypass the canal. While the 2016 expansion was significant, this next phase would allow the canal to compete directly with routes like the Nicaragua Canal, which aims to handle larger ships. To make this happen, Panama would need substantial investment, likely requiring financial partnerships or international aid. The Canal Authority could look to public-private partnerships, or even foreign investors from countries with a vested interest in maintaining the canal as a major trade route, such as the United States, China, or Japan. Technological innovations would also play a key role in this scenario. The Panama Canal could integrate AI-driven shipping traffic management systems, further optimize fuel efficiency for vessels passing through, and adopt green technologies to reduce its carbon footprint. With the global push for sustainability, the Panama Canal might market itself as the most environmentally friendly shipping route, capitalizing on the growing demand for low-emission transport. If Panama successfully implements these changes, the canal could remain competitive, perhaps even increasing its share of global trade. Shipping companies may prefer the Panama Canal due to its long-standing reputation, reliability, and newly expanded capacity. This scenario would likely result in Panama's continued economic growth, maintaining its role as a critical player in global trade. Scenario 2. The Nicaragua Canal and other rivals take over. In this scenario, the Panama Canal struggles to keep up with the rise of new competitors, particularly the Nicaragua Canal, which opens to much fanfare. With its greater depth and capacity to handle larger ships, the Nicaragua Canal quickly gains the attention of shipping companies that prioritize efficiency and cost savings. The Nicaragua Canal's ability to accommodate ULCVs and supertankers, which the Panama Canal cannot, makes it an attractive option for companies transporting large quantities of goods across the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. The Arctic route also becomes increasingly viable due to the effects of climate change. As ice in the Arctic continues to melt, the shipping window expands, allowing vessels to take the shorter northern sea route between Europe and Asia more frequently. While the Arctic route still faces challenges, such as extreme weather and the need for specialized icebreaker ships, it begins to capture a growing share of global trade, particularly for goods moving between northern Europe and East Asia. The Suez Canal, having undergone significant expansions in recent years, also maintains its share of the global trade market, particularly for shipments between Europe and Asia. Its strategic location and ability to handle large vessels ensure that it remains a critical player in the global shipping network. As a result of these developments, traffic through the Panama Canal begins to decline. Shipping companies, particularly those operating larger vessels, shift to alternative routes that offer better economies of scale. The Panama Canal's revenue drops, impacting Panama's economy, which relies heavily on the income generated by canal tolls. In this scenario, Panama is forced to pivot. The country may seek to diversify its economy, focusing on tourism, logistics, and services to compensate for the loss of revenue from the canal. Panama's strategic location still makes it an important hub for regional trade, but its role in global trade diminishes. Scenario 3. Multiple trade routes coexist in this more balanced scenario. The Panama Canal, Nicaragua Canal, and other emerging routes all manage to carve out the niches in the global shipping market. Rather than one route dominating, we see a multipolar trade landscape, where different canals and routes coexist, each serving different types of cargo and regions. In this scenario, the Panama Canal continues to serve the majority of the world's smaller vessels and regional trade between the Americas and Asia. Its expansion in 2016 allows it to handle a significant volume of global shipping, and while it doesn't accommodate the largest ULCVs, it still offers a reliable and cost-effective option for medium-sized container ships, in-carriers, and tankers. The Nicaragua Canal, meanwhile, captures the traffic from the largest vessels, particularly those transporting bulk goods and oil. It positions itself as the go-to route for mega ships, offering a faster and more direct route for vessels that would otherwise be forced to navigate the longer path around South America. This specialization allows the Nicaragua Canal to thrive without fully displacing the Panama Canal. The Arctic route becomes an increasingly important seasonal trade route, used primarily during the summer months when the ice is less of a barrier. While it doesn't replace the Panama or Nicaragua canals, it becomes a critical part of the global trade network for companies moving goods between Europe and Asia. The Suez Canal remains a key player in the global trade landscape, particularly for shipments between Europe and the Middle East or Asia. Its ability to handle large vessels and its strategic location keep it relevant, and it continues to compete with the Panama Canal for traffic headed to and from the Americas. In this scenario, global trade becomes more diversified, with no single canal or route dominating. Instead, shipping companies select the route that best suits their needs based on cargo type, vessel size, and destination. The result is a more resilient global trade network, with multiple options for moving goods across the world. But, will the Panama Canal become a relic of the past? There is a growing debate among experts about whether the Panama Canal can survive the next few decades in the face of these challenges. Some argue that the canal, while still important today, is on a path to irrelevance as larger vessels, new routes, and technological advancements outpace its capacity. These experts suggest that without significant investment in modernization, the Panama Canal could become a relic, a historical marvel but no longer a key player in global trade. Others believe that the Panama Canal still has a vital role to play, particularly if it can adapt to the changing landscape. With its strategic location, well-established infrastructure, and the potential for further expansion, the canal could continue to serve as a major hub for global trade, even if newer routes like the Nicaragua Canal emerge as competitors. Ultimately, the fate of the Panama Canal will depend on its ability to innovate, invest in new infrastructure, and navigate the complex geopolitical and environmental challenges of the 21st century. What does the future hold? As we've explored throughout this video, the Panama Canal is at a critical crossroads. For over a century, it has been the world's most important shipping route, enabling faster, more efficient trade between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But as new trade routes like the Nicaragua Canal and the Arctic route emerge, the Panama Canal faces a future filled with uncertainty. We've examined the potential challenges that the canal faces, from aging infrastructure and environmental vulnerabilities to geopolitical tensions and increasing competition from other global shipping lanes. These challenges are significant, and the canal's ability to adapt will determine whether it can maintain its role in the global economy or be overshadowed by new competitors. The rise of the Nicaragua Canal, in particular, poses a serious threat. With the backing of Chinese investment and the ability to accommodate the world's largest vessels, the Nicaragua Canal could draw significant traffic away from Panama. Similarly, the Arctic route and the Suez Canal's expansion offer alternative options for global shippers, further increasing the competition. Despite these challenges, there is still hope for the Panama Canal. If Panama can secure the necessary investment to modernize its infrastructure, integrate new technologies, and position itself as a leader in sustainable shipping, the canal could continue to play a vital role in global trade for decades to come. However, if it fails to adapt, the canal risks becoming a relic of a bygone era, a historical marvel overshadowed by newer, more efficient routes. In the end, the future of the Panama Canal is not set in stone. The decisions made by the Canal Authority, shipping companies, and governments in the coming years will shape the future of global trade. Will the Panama Canal rise to the challenge and remain a key player, or will new rivals change the course of global shipping forever? Only time will tell. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of global trade, infrastructure, and economic trends. See you next time.